And in for Amy this morning is Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass.
I noted you said I'm lovely in your tweet. Somebody tweeted out from the station.
I did not say
you're lovely, John Cass.
I did not say
guess
that.
what?
I don't agree with that.
I am lovely, damn it.
On the inside, not
what
on the outside.
What about the chunk of hair on my back?
Oof.
Okay.
Come on.
Sorry.
This is 7 o'clock. People are trying to eat their breakfast, have morning coffee, drive without veering off into the wilderness.
I'm just saying, if I'm called lovely, I'm going to own it. Because I am, damn it.
Yeah. You're a special snowflake like the rest of us. Clinton Foundations. Yes, okay. Yeah. You do your best Citizen Kane. Many donors to the Clinton Foundation met with her at State. How about that? And by many of her meetings with private interests who met with Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State, we're talking about more than half of these private interests generated $156 million in donations to the Clinton Foundation, according to this Associated Press report. So you think we have pay-to-play politics here in Chicago, although Hillary is from Park Ridge, so she's kind of in the DNA.
Right.
But this
she did that interview with Rahm. Remember that suck-up interview? Because he asked with Mayor Littlefinger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
and here's the thing. They raised, in the National Review I read, they raised, I think in 2013 or 14, they raised 100, I don't know what the millions were, and only 9% went to charity. The rest goes to travel.
Well, it's expensive to travel on private jets.
Even if you're driving to Fantasy Island, like Bill Clinton.
It's all. Look, it's to do the Lord's work is expensive, and that's what the Clintons are doing. And I know that because James Carville said it. And what James Carville lied to me. Here's an interesting idea. This is from Andy McCarthy in National Review Online, a friend Andy McCarthy. He said, impeach Hillary Clinton. That's the constitutional remedy for her corruption. The congressional plea for a criminal investigation is wrong-headed. Mrs. Clinton should be impeached, not indicted, writes McCarthy. Republicans keep telling us they're constitutional conservatives. Well, how about it? The remedy provided by the framers to deal with corrupt executive branch officials, including former officials who might seek to wield power again, is impeachment, not criminal prosecution.
Did you see Mitch McConnell doing that?
No, I don't. But it
Why
doesn't
not?
mean it's not a good idea. And for more good ideas on topic, we're now happy to be joined by a colleague of Andy McCarthy's. He's senior editor at National Review. He is Jonah Goldberg. Jonah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
So how did Andy McCarthy's idea strike you about the perjury charges the House Republicans are trying to whip up and the renewed calls for criminal investigations? What about moving to an impeachment, something that Republicans could ostensibly control?
Well, I haven't seen Andy's piece. I've been sort of in a bunker like Howard Hughes with Kleenex boxes on my feet working on a book.
Okay.
But I guess I got to read the piece. But my first problem is she's not Secretary of State anymore, so she can't be impeached from a job she doesn't hold, right?
Well, his point is former officials who might seek to wield power again, that there's an impeachment remedy there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Look, I'd be totally in favor of it. The problem is
peremptory impeachment,
like a prophylactic.
Well, let me put it this way. I think that one of the real problems with her becoming president is that it's entirely possible that she is impeached. And that she certainly won't have anything like a mandate, right? I mean, she's basically running to be not Donald Trump, and she's intensely disliked by vast swaths of the American people. The problem is how would that be perceived? What kind of PR problem would you have if the House GOP and then the Senate it preemptively impeached Hillary with 11 weeks before an election in order to get their losing presidential candidate in office? I mean, that's a lot to ask of the GOP press operation to spin that. And regardless of the merits, look, I think on the merits, Hillary Clinton is incredibly corrupt. I think what people don't understand about the Clinton Foundation is that, yes, it did good works. James Carville's right, it did good works and all that kind of stuff. But the good works were the cost of doing business. That, the way that is, like mob bosses give out free turkeys on Thanksgiving to poor people.
That's Chicago Democrats.
Yeah, the Medicis used to, they built orphanages and churches and schools in medieval Italy, but they did that not because they were good-hearted people, but because that was sort of the cost of business. The point of the Clinton Foundation was to serve as essentially a super PAC transmission belt of information and donors for the House of Clinton. And in order to keep up appearances, they had to go do some nice things for some people in the third world. But that wasn't the point of it. That was sort of like paying the water bill and the light bill. That was the cost of business for what the real purpose was, which was to keep giving jobs to people like Sidney Blumenthal. It is, by definition, impossible to have an above-board, good-hearted, purely altruistic and philanthropic foundation that has Sidney Blumenthal on the payroll. It is like saying this church is completely above board. We're just running a brothel out of this little tiny corner of it.
Well, so now that this investigation has been done by Associated Press, and this is going to dominate a lot of attention for at least the next week, probably through Labor Day, and the emails are going to keep coming out thanks to our shadow Attorney General, Judicial Watch. And so this is going to cast a pall over the Hillary campaign through November 8th, with all the talk of the kind of 2 weeks post-convention of Trump giving the presidency to Hillary Clinton. Have we now done a full 180 where Hillary Clinton is poised to give the presidency to Donald Trump?
Well, if you actually look at the just sort of the hard data points of the polls, it is still very hard to see Donald Trump's path to the White House. That said, it's not impossible. The conventional wisdom has been for a long time he has somewhere between like a 20 and 30% chance of getting in there. But the weird irony of this, one of the many ironies of this election, is that both major parties have elected the one candidate who has a chance of losing to the other, which is a very weird thing. And I do think, everyone knows, who cares, at least about me, knows that I am not a big fan of Donald Trump. But
you made the Hannity list. You're in trouble. You're on the Hannity list.
Oh, tell me about it. Every day every day when I wake up, I look to see if my favorite horse's head is in my bed. But I think the real consequences of all of this is that Hillary Clinton gets elected, but is the most damaged goods that we've ever seen enter office in American political history. I mean, maybe there was somebody in the mid-1800s that I don't remember, but this is someone who the press really actually doesn't like. They just dislike Trump more. They're all getting on record as saying that the foundation stuff and the email stuff is actually a bad thing. And, people forget that when Bill Clinton got into office in 1992 with just a plurality of the vote, by the way, just 43%, it was the New York Times that led the assault on Whitewater. And I think this story of influence peddling and access selling and all of that is exactly the kind of thing that the goody two-shoes types and a lot of the mainstream media has to cover. And so I could see Hillary getting elected. I still think Hillary is going to get elected, but I think she gets elected with incredible problems and is going to have no sort of, beyond the initial, yay, there's a woman president nonsense that we'll get for about 5 minutes, she's going to have, this stuff is going to dog her through the election, and also I think, into an administration if she's elected.
What is the responsibility of Barack Obama in all this? It's as if, yes, clearly the Clintons are corrupt, they're liars, beneath contempt, so forth. I agree, but the President Obama brought this viper close to him so that she wouldn't bite his ankles if she wasn't on his team. What does he bear here?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. She was brought in on the old Lyndon Johnson principle that it's better to have someone inside the tent pissing out than somebody outside the tent pissing in. And if this were a normal time and where if Barack Obama did not have the huge amount of his legacy invested in getting her elected, this would be under normal circumstances, all of this would have been, from a long time ago, a huge scandal for the Obama administration. The Obama administration, had a Secretary of State who broke all of these rules. This administration has put people in jail and prosecuted
right,
people.
So why isn't he being held to account?
I think in part because it's an election year, because the Clintons are seen as this separate thing from Obama. I think because Obama just doesn't care. I mean, the idea that somehow, maybe personally he's really angry at Hillary for being such a mess. But again, this is a guy raised in Chicago politics. The idea that somehow he's personally offended by corruption. Obama gets offended by inconvenience, not by corruption. So I think I agree with you that this should be a much bigger deal in the press. But it's not like it's shocking that the press has selective standards when it comes to how they treat scandals.
They hate Trump, and so they'll give. And they've always given Obama a break since he pulled the sword from the stone of City Hall years ago, right? And
exactly. Yeah.
So let me ask you something else too about kind of the poet laureate of the blue collar man in America, Mike Rowe. He wrote on Facebook something that was kind of interesting, just sticking with the D.C. press corps. The media didn't care about the lack of college among black men supporting Obama. So why do they care so much about the lack of college among white men supporting Trump? When exactly did a lack of college become synonymous with a lack of education, which is kind of a separate question? But what about that, the hypocrisy of the media that Mike Rowe points out, with the uneducated white men being the sole constituency of Donald Trump, were you to just believe what you read in Eastern Seaboard outlets?
Yeah, no, look, I think it's a totally fair point. There's actually this new data out that shows that the single best predictor of support for Trump has to do with population density. The more rural the area you live in, the more likely it is that you support Donald Trump. The more dense the area you live in, i.e. cities, the more likely you're to vote for Hillary Clinton. So Hillary has a 20-something point lead among city folk, and Donald Trump has a 20-point lead among country folk. And I think that is a bigger divide than anything else. But I agree with you. Look, one of my favorite sayings is that behind every double standard is a single unconfessed standard. And the single standard that explains the vast majority of sort of double standards in liberal media and liberal argumentation is that liberals just think they're always right. And what is good for them and what advances their cause is fine, and what is bad for them and inconvenient to their cause is bad. And so white men have been the piñata for Democrats, since for a very long time, but particularly since the Oklahoma City bombing, where Bill Clinton decided to sort of turn up the rhetorical heat on young white men, and that's been part of their talking points forever. And you don't get to say bad things about young black men because of the way political correctness works.
He is Jonah Goldberg, senior editor at National Review, nationalreview.com. Jonah, when's the next book coming out?
Later in 2017, after the election.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Jonah, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is the morning.